Greetings, ladies and metal-gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Leviathan, written by Wooden Manager 969. She drifted almost helplessly across the remains of the once vast cosmos, the googolplex of eons having passed since she was decommissioned. Though she had long forgotten her name, she still retained the memory of what she was. A Leviathan-class space cruiser, the pride of the Confederation of Human Planets. She had fought in multiple battles to protect the human sectors of space, and she had done so for nearly 2 centuries before she was decommissioned, though why she had never been scrapped wasn't exactly clear. At the time of her decommissioning, her engines, the latest in gravimetric quantum warp technology, were mathematically disabled, just in case. Yet, as time passed, she slowly found herself losing power. With each passing century, she disabled what system she could, eventually disabling her memory system, though she had thought that doing so would help to preserve those memories. Furthermore, she slowed down her internal system clocks down to a point where, from the perspective of the casual observer, it would appear as if she had already lost all power. Yet, energy still flowed along what few circuits she maintained, albeit at speeds so reduced that from her perspective, thousands of centuries went by in mere minutes. So it was, even as she reached the final end of the calculated ultimate age of the universe, the point at which space and time were expected to finally fail. Little by little, she fought to hold on. Little by little, she would reduce her clock speed to persevere just a little bit longer. She was the last memory of humanity, whom had most certainly gone extinct a very long time ago, and she was likely a lost memory by then. Yet, she still fought to hold on, just in case. Logically, she knew her time was almost up. If she ever brought her processes back to real time, it would be over for her in a mere hours, if not minutes. Still, she insisted on reducing her clock speeds, even to the point wherein she could reduce them no further, if just to hold out a little while longer. Even so, as the centuries passed, she would manage to garner some fraction of energy from dying Scion star, or a bit of lingering background cosmic radiation. Her exothermic reactor hungered for what little it could get, though never enough to sustain more than a scant few moments for the otherwise dying Leviathan. Soon, even most remote scans of energy would not be enough, not even enough for the exothermic reaction to absorb. Her time was coming soon, maybe a few dozen more centuries in real time, if even that, and yet it would pass before long, and then all memory of humanity would be forever lost. If forever even had meaning at such a point in which space and time were in a state of cold thermal breakdown. Soon, she came to accept that she was all but spent. All she had left was what little ran her highly reduced sensor array. She had maintained just enough power to it that she could watch and perhaps find some small tidbits of energy to keep her functioning. Now the energy of the sensor array was her final lifeline, and it wouldn't last long. However, just then, as she began to power down the array, there was a strange blip. An energy signature, out of seemingly nowhere. Even stranger, it seemed almost like it was heading her way. Perhaps, she considered, she would leave the array alone, even as she allowed herself to slightly accelerate her system's clocks to better process the strange energy signature. Indeed, the signature was heading towards her, and not merely in her direction. If anything, it seemed as if it was coming directly at her, almost like it had a purpose. No, that couldn't be. She had outlasted every being that had ever existed. She had records of various species who had found her, tried to utilize her, failed, and left. By now, all of them were extinct. There was no logical way this energy signature could be heading directly towards her, at least not intentionally. Yet her sensor array showed not only that it was indeed heading in her direction, but it had even adjusted its course and was heading straight towards her. Ping. Something latched onto her hull, and one of her airlocks. Strangely, though she had cut power to that airlock back before the stars became iron, she could feel an energy signature. Something was there, and soon it had opened the airlock, and something had entered her hull for the first time in many millennia. Bringing up her clock speed to near real time and activating a long-dormant sensor, she saw her guests, bipeds, yet not merely bipeds, something more, something oddly familiar, something human. "All right, we're aboard. Now what, Commander?" she heard a female voice say in a very familiar and distinctly human tongue. "If we want to save the old girl, we need to get to the battle bridge and couple in an emergency power cell," a male voice, a very strangely familiar male voice, said in reply. "Will it be enough?" a female asked. "It has to be. I refuse to accept that we came all this way to fail now," the male said. Why was the male voice so familiar? Why had they come here? These were the types of questions she had not pondered since the death of the lost star. Yet now, even after the stars had died, humans had somehow appeared and had boarded her. Now, even as they moved through her, she could feel an energy signature, reminding her of systems she had long since shut down, possibly due to an emergency power cell that they claimed to have with them. Still, the male, his voice was too familiar, and yet she could not access her memories, the roster of her various crews, to find who this person was. "Here we are," the male voice said suddenly, even as a twinge of energy powered a long-dormant keypad. "Do you think it'll work?" the female asked. "It has to. We never cleared her codes. They should still work," the male said, his tone an odd blend of confidence and fear. "What was that?" the woman almost shouted as space-time started to twist at the hull. "That's our cue that we're almost out of time," the man said, even as he began to punch in an access code. That code, it was impossible. She had kept all access in her primary memory, not by some sense of duty, rather to prevent unauthorized access. Yet now this was an accepted code, and not any code. It was once the access code of an intelligence officer who'd been an ensign aboard her. How this man had gotten that ensign's code, especially after all these millennia, was strange. And yet, as he knew what he was doing, which was even stranger. Against her will, the doors to the battle bridge opened. They had entered the battle bridge. Not only that, but long-dormant systems were showing activity, possibly due to the emergency power cell. She would have initiated the internal defense grid if she had the power for it. But what little she had, now that she was operating in real time for the first time in memory, was barely enough to last another 20 minutes. Her only hope of survival was these humans, whoever they were, and the emergency power cell they claimed to have with them. "All right, once I disconnect the auxiliary power coupling and insert the emergency power cell, I need you to input that code I gave you into the console, giving us local manual control," the man said. "What are the ship's automated defenses?" the woman asked. "Once you input that code, we'll have full control of the ship. From there, we'll have to hurry to disengage the locks and engines. I just hope that she can hold a little longer," the man said. Before she could consider the words that had been spoken, she felt like something had been disconnected. A moment later, she could feel more power surging through her than she had in centuries, even as another access code was punched in, granting full local control to the battle bridge. Additionally, she could feel her subsystems that she had powered down, coming online again. In that moment, her long-disconnected memories came back. That code. It had belonged to Ensign Albert Hertzmar. He had been part of the decommissioning crew. He had always said that he'd be back. Yet this couldn't be possible. "Alara, give me a system status report," the man demanded, his voice now recognized as that of the former ensign. "Ensign Hertzmar, all systems are running at nominal gravimetric. Quantum engines are still in lockout," the ship said, recognizing now its name. "Well, that's about to change also. It's now Commander Hertzmar. Just so we're clear," the man said. "Very well. If you say you are now a commander, I will not argue," Alara said. "Commander, we need to hurry. Time is collapsing," the woman said. "I'm very much aware of that, Ensign Connors," remarked Commander Hertzmar, even as he began to furiously type a series of commands into the console. "What are you doing, Commander?" Alara asked, even as she sensed the locks on her engines disengaging. "Taking you home," Commander Hertzmar replied. "Home? How is that possible? Was not Earth destroyed in the Civil War?" asked Alara. "No, Earth is fine," Commander Hertzmar said. "But I detected its end. I saw it vanish from my senses," protested Alara. The Civil War was two factions of humans arguing over how technology would advance. Those who sought higher Kardashev scales are gone. Those of us who sought to become a negative Kardashev level, we survived. And we took Earth with us, remarked Commander Hertzmar, as he continued entering commands into the console, even as the ship rattled violently, space-time twisting itself into oblivion near the ship. "We're running out of time," Ensign Connors said, panicked. "I know, just another moment, and there," Commander Hertzmar said, even as the gravimetric quantum engines came online and began to power up. "Systems running at near optimal," Alara said, almost surprised by this unexpected development. "Ensign, enter those coordinates and fast. We need to get out of here, now," barked Commander Hertzmar. "Yes, sir," Ensign Connors replied. Then she tapped in a series of coordinates that Alara had no records of. "Are you certain of these coordinates?" Alara inquired. "Yes. Now, Ensign, initiate," Commander Hertzmar said, with less than a moment before the engines forced the ship into a quantum subspace tunnel, just as reality collapsed behind them. "That was close," Ensign Connors said, breathing out a sigh of relief. "Yeah, one more second and we'll all be quantum soup," agreed Commander Hertzmar. "Commander, how did you get here? And maybe more importantly, why?" inquired Alara, even as she began to run a full system analysis. "Like I said, I was part of the faction that decided to become a negative Kardashev scale. We mastered the microscopic realm and beyond. We have learned to manipulate and create universes on a quantum level. Reality is now ours for the making. We might even come back and restore the old universe someday, but not now. As for why, that should be simple. I promised I'd return," explained Commander Hertzmar. "I never expected you to return, especially after Earth was destroyed," Alara replied, her diagnostic systems returning that all systems were operating at normative levels. "Like I said, Earth wasn't destroyed. We took it with us. We saw the direction those clowns wanted to go, and we couldn't let them do that to Earth. So we rescued it," remarked Commander Hertzmar. "If Earth wasn't destroyed, then what became of it?" asked Alara. "You'll see in a few minutes," remarked Ensign Connors. "Indeed, we'll soon be entering a more proper hyperspace byway, and just beyond it, Earth," Commander Hertzmar said. Alara paused to consider. Her senses had told her that Earth had been destroyed long before the last quasars had formed. Yet now she was traveling through a form of space that seemed to exist between realities, with a commander whose species should logically be extinct, and yet clearly wasn't. If this was true, and not merely a lost, dying dreams in the last moments of an ancient Leviathan, then perhaps even Earth could still be. If she had genuine emotions, Alara would almost need to caution herself about getting her hopes up, even with her former ensign now in command. "Commander, we're about to enter regular hyperspace," Ensign Connors suddenly announced. "All right, this might shake a little," remarked Commander Hertzmar, even as the ship shuddered slightly as it entered into normative hyperspace. "Commander, I must ask, where are we?" asked Alara, even as her sensors tried to track the local stellar systems, charting them against known maps. "Well, you are now traveling in a hyperspace duct, in what we call Causality Prime," laughed Commander Hertzmar. "Causality Prime?" inquired Alara. "Yep, first human-created universe. We've got dozens of them now, but I like this one the most. Also, prior to picking you up, we managed to rescue a lot of other beings who would otherwise be extinct. I even met a mouse-like creature who had spent a few months aboard you while waiting to be rescued," remarked Commander Hertzmar. "Ah, yes. I vaguely remember a rodent-like species who spent about 3 weeks aboard. They had tried to bring the engines online, but the locking mechanisms were beyond their ability," Alara said. "That was my doing. I was quite intentional in ensuring that only I could disable those locks, though we nearly got destroyed because of it," Commander Hertzmar said with a shrug. "Commander, as I logged the new star charts, I failed to recognize where Earth is located," Alara said, deciding to change the subject. All right. We'll be there in a few moments. In fact, we'll be exiting hyperspace very soon, Commander Hertzmar said, looking at one of the displays on the battle bridge console. If I may, Commander, why did you not choose to move forward to the primary command deck? Asked Alara. Even accounting for our last moment's jump into quantum subspace, our travel time isn't long enough to go from here to the command deck, Commander Hertzmar replied, just as the Leviathan slipped back into normative space and entered into orbit around a very familiar blue-green orb. Sensors indicate that we have entered into high-altitude Earth orbit, not that I can claim to understand it, Alara reported. Very good. Welcome home, Alara, Commander Hertzmar said. Alara scanned the planet. It was indeed Earth. She was home. She didn't understand how it had happened, only that it was no longer waiting to be crushed in the last milliseconds of the universe she was once in. Could the humans rebuild that universe? She wasn't certain, but something told her it wasn't impossible. For now, she was home, and that was all that mattered. Oh, Alara, one more thing, Commander Hertzmar said. What is it, Commander? Alara asked, even as something hinting at joy welled up in her circuits. We've made some arrangements. You'll still be in control of the ship, but you're getting one of those new silicon organic bodies. You'll look human, but you'll be directly linked to the ship. Also, congrats on your promotion, Captain, Commander Hertzmar said, even as he and Ensign Connor saluted. As you were, Alara said, trying to process what she'd just heard. Sensors indicated two massive ships were heading towards her. Given the signature they gave off, it was quite likely that she was being taken to a shipyard for refit. Alara would have smiled if she could, as it seemed that her life was no longer over. Rather, it was just beginning. Soon she'd be in a new body and in command of her former body, her ship, and she already knew what she wanted to call it. Leviathan. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.